The alien council chamber erupted in chaos as Commander Ethan Cross stepped through the doorway for the first time in 28 years. Every species in the galaxy had representatives here, and every single one of them froze when they saw his face. Ambassador Velrith of the Corvan Empire dropped her data tablet. The metallic clatter echoed through the sudden silence like a gunshot. "Impossible," she whispered, her four eyes widening in what might have been fear. "You're dead." "We confirmed it. The humans withdrew after you called us vermin," Ethan said quietly. His voice hadn't changed. Still calm, still measured. "After you said humanity was a genetic mistake that natural selection missed. After you told the entire council that our species was too stupid to deserve a vote on galactic policy." Velrith's skin shifted from purple to ash gray. She remembered. Of course she remembered. "That was nearly 3 decades ago," she said, recovering her composure with visible effort. "I was young. Diplomatic relations have since improved." Ethan smiled, and there was nothing friendly in it. "You're right. They have improved. For you." He walked to the center of the chamber, his boots clicking against the crystalline floor. Behind him, the doorway shimmered. Something massive was moving on the other side. "Where have you been?" demanded High Chancellor Zorath, a being of pure energy contained in a magnetic field. "The humans vanished from all known space. No trade, no communication. We assumed you destroyed yourselves in some primitive conflict." "We were busy," Ethan replied. The shimmering intensified. The entire chamber began to vibrate. "Busy with what?" Velrith's voice cracked slightly. Ethan turned to face her directly. 28 years ago, he'd been a junior diplomat, fresh out of the academy. Idealistic. He believed the galaxy would welcome humanity with open arms. Instead, he'd stood in this exact spot and listened to Velrith systematically dismantle every argument for human inclusion. She'd been eloquent, cruel, and effective. The vote had been unanimous. Humanity could observe galactic politics, but never participate. Ethan had said nothing. He'd simply walked out, and humanity had gone silent. "You called us vermin," Ethan said softly. "So we decided to show you what vermin do when you back them into a corner." The doorway exploded with light. Through it stepped soldiers in armor that made the Council's most advanced technology look like stone tools. Behind them, shapes moved in the darkness. Ships, thousands of them. Velrith's legs gave out. She collapsed into her seat, staring at the impossible. "We didn't go to war with ourselves," Ethan continued. "We went to work. 28 years of uninterrupted research and development. No distractions, no galactic politics, just humans doing what we do best." He gestured to the fleet behind him. Adapting. The council chamber's defensive shields activated automatically, bathing everything in red warning light. Alarms screamed through the station's corridors. Every species' military instinct kicked in simultaneously, but nobody moved. They couldn't. The sheer scale of what hovered beyond that doorway had paralyzed them. "Shields down," Ethan said calmly. "Now." High Chancellor Zorath's energy field flickered with what might have been indignation. "You dare issue commands in this chamber? Human, you have no authority here." "You never did." "I'm not commanding," Ethan replied. "I'm advising. Your shields are running on teravolt-class generators, correct? Corvan design, if I'm not mistaken. Top of the line, 28 years ago." He pulled a small device from his pocket and held it up. It looked like nothing more than a smooth black stone. "This is a standard-issue human disruptor. Every soldier behind me carries one. It generates a cascade feedback loop in any teravolt-class system. The shields don't just fail. They detonate. This entire station would become a very expensive firework." Zorath's field dimmed. Slowly, the red warning lights faded as the shields powered down. "Better," Ethan said, pocketing the device. "Now we can talk like civilized beings." Ambassador Velrith had regained some of her composure, though her skin remained ashen. "This is an act of war. You bring an armada to a diplomatic station and threaten us with weapons. The entire galaxy will unite against you." "Will they?" Ethan gestured to the assembled representatives. "Let's ask them. Ambassador Thex of the Antarian Cluster, how's your war with the Vreen Collective going?" The insectoid ambassador's mandibles clicked nervously. "That conflict is classified information." "How do you—" "We've been watching," Ethan interrupted. "All of you. For 28 years, we've monitored every transmission, every trade route, every military movement. You thought we disappeared. We just stopped talking to you. There's a difference." He walked slowly around the chamber's perimeter, and every representative tracked his movement like prey watching a predator. "The Vryn are winning, by the way. They've developed a bioweapon specifically engineered for Antarian physiology. Your people have maybe 6 months before the war turns completely against you, unless, of course, someone happened to provide you with the countermeasure formula." Thex's entire body tensed. "You have it? We synthesized it 4 months ago," Ethan said casually. "Yes." In case we needed a conversation starter, Velrith stood abruptly. "This is extortion." "No," Ethan corrected. "Extortion would be if I demanded something in exchange. I'm simply demonstrating that humanity has been productive during our absence." "Chancellor Zorath, your containment field is degrading. You've noticed the fluctuations, haven't you? Small at first, but getting worse. The energy being pulsed with alarm." "My personal field is stable. Our technology is failing," Ethan finished. "Your species discovered the secret to energy-based consciousness 8,000 years ago, but you never solved the entropy problem. Every generation of your people lives slightly shorter than the last. You've tried to hide it, but the mathematics don't lie. At current degradation rates, your species has maybe 2 centuries left." The chamber had gone absolutely silent. "We fixed it," Ethan continued. "Took our physicists about 6 years. Turns out you were missing a fairly simple principle of quantum stabilization. We'd be happy to share." Representative after representative stared at him with expressions ranging from shock to horror to desperate hope. "What do you want?" Velrith asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan turned to face her fully. 28 years ago, you asked this council what humanity could possibly offer the galaxy. You said we were primitive, violent, and intellectually inferior. You said our short lifespans made us think in short terms, incapable of the long-term planning necessary for galactic civilization. He smiled coldly. You were right about one thing. While you spent 3 decades in committee meetings and diplomatic dinners, we spent it solving your problems. Every species in this chamber has at least one existential crisis they think is secret. We know about all of them, and we've solved most of them. The massive ships beyond the doorway began moving closer, their hulls gleaming with technology that made even the Council's most advanced sensors struggle to analyze them. So here's what happens next, Ethan said. Humanity gets a council seat, full voting rights, equal standing, and in exchange, we'll share what we've learned. And if we refuse? Zorath asked. Then we leave. Again, and in 28 more years, maybe we'll check back to see which of you are still alive. The council chamber's defensive shields activated automatically, bathing everything in red warning light. Alarms screamed through the station's corridors. Every species' military instinct kicked in simultaneously, but nobody moved. They couldn't. The sheer scale of what hovered beyond that doorway had paralyzed them. Shields down, Ethan said calmly. Now, High Chancellor Zorath's energy field flickered with what might have been indignation. You dare issue commands in this chamber, human? You have no authority here. You never did. I'm not commanding, Ethan replied. I'm advising. Your shields are running on Terrabolt-class generators, correct? Corvin design, if I'm not mistaken. Top of the line, 20 years ago. He pulled a small device from his pocket and held it up. It looked like nothing more than a smooth black stone. This is a standard-issue human disruptor. Every soldier behind me carries one. It generates a cascade feedback loop in any Terrabolt-class system. The shields don't just fail. They detonate. This entire station would become a very expensive firework. Zorath's field dimmed. Slowly, the red warning lights faded as the shields powered down. Better, Ethan said, pocketing the device. Now we can talk like civilized beings. Ambassador Velrith had regained some of her composure, though her skin remained ashen. This is an act of war. You bring an armada to a diplomatic station and threaten us with weapons. The entire galaxy will unite against you. Will they? Ethan gestured to the assembled representatives. Let's ask them. Ambassador Thex of the Antarian Cluster, how's your war with the Vryn Collective going? The insectoid ambassador's mandibles clicked nervously. That conflict is classified information. How do you? We've been watching, Ethan interrupted. All of you, for 28 years. We'd monitored every transmission, every trade route, every military movement. You thought we disappeared. We just stopped talking to you.
There's a difference. He walked slowly around the chamber's perimeter, and every representative tracked his movement like prey watching a predator.
The Vryn are winning, by the way. They've developed a bioweapon specifically engineered for Antarian physiology. Your people have maybe 6 months before the war turns completely against you. Unless, of course, someone happened to provide you with the countermeasure formula. Thex's entire body tensed. You have it? We synthesized it 4 months ago, Ethan said casually, just in case we needed a conversation starter. Velrith stood abruptly. This is extortion. No, Ethan corrected. Extortion would be if I demanded something in exchange. I'm simply demonstrating that humanity has been productive during our absence. Chancellor Zorath, your containment field is degrading. You've noticed the fluctuations, haven't you? Small at first, but getting worse. The energy being pulsed with alarm. My personal field is stable. Our technology is failing. Ethan finished. Your species discovered the secret to energy-based consciousness 8,000 years ago, but you never solved the entropy problem. Every generation of your people lives slightly shorter than the last. You've tried to hide it, but the mathematics don't lie. At current degradation rates, your species has maybe 2 centuries left. The chamber had gone absolutely silent. We fixed it, Ethan continued. Took our physicists about 6 years. Turns out you were missing a fairly simple principle of quantum stabilization. We'd be happy to share. Representative after representative stared at him with expressions ranging from shock to horror to desperate hope. What do you want? Velrith asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan turned to face her fully. 28 years ago, you asked this council what humanity could possibly offer the galaxy. You said we were primitive, violent, and intellectually inferior. You said our short lifespans made us think in short terms, incapable of the long-term planning necessary for galactic civilization. He smiled coldly. You were right about one thing. We do think differently. While you spent 3 decades in committee meetings and diplomatic dinners, we spent it solving your problems. Every species in this chamber has at least one existential crisis they think is secret. We know about all of them, and we've solved most of them. The massive ships beyond the doorway began moving closer, their hulls gleaming with technology that made even the Council's most advanced sensors struggle to analyze them. "So here's what happens next," Ethan said. "Humanity gets a council seat, full voting rights, equal standing, and in exchange, we'll share what we've learned." "And if we refuse?" Zorath asked. "Then we leave. Again, and in 28 more years, maybe we'll check back to see which of you are still alive." Ambassador Velrith's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of her podium. "You can't seriously expect us to capitulate to threats. The Galactic Council has existed for 12,000 years. We have protocols, procedures, standards that we don't care about," Ethan interrupted. "Let me be crystal clear. We're not asking permission. We're informing you of a change in circumstances." A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. Data streamed across it in languages from every represented species. Equations, schematics, medical formulas, weapons designs. Things that should have been impossible for anyone to compile, let alone understand. "This is insane," muttered Ambassador Krell of the Saurian Dominion, his reptilian eyes scanning the data frantically. "These are our most classified military projects. How did you access our networks? Our encryption is mathematically unbreakable." Ethan laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. "You built your encryption on prime number factorization. Very clever. Worked perfectly for 3,000 years. But 18 years ago, a human teenager in New Singapore built a quantum processor in her garage that can factor your largest primes in about 6 seconds." "Impossible!" Krell hissed. "Her name is Maya Chen. She's now our chief cryptography officer. She says your systems were fun to crack. Took her a whole afternoon." The hologram shifted, displaying what appeared to be live feeds from various locations across the galaxy. Military installations, government buildings, private laboratories. Every species represented in the chamber saw their most secure facilities displayed casually in the open. "Turn it off!" Velrith demanded, her voice rising to a shriek. "This is a violation of every treaty, every law you wrote without consulting us," Ethan said. "You made the rules. We just learned to play a different game." He gestured, and one of the armored soldiers stepped forward. The armor retracted with a soft hiss, revealing a woman who couldn't have been more than 30 years old. She had burn scars along one side of her face and eyes that looked far older than her physical age. "This is Colonel Angela Price," Ethan said. 28 years ago, she was 6 months old. Her parents were part of the human diplomatic mission. They brought her to the gallery to watch what they thought would be humanity's acceptance into galactic civilization. Angela's voice was flat, emotionless. "I don't remember it, but I've watched the recording 1,000 times. I've seen Ambassador Velrith explain in detail why my species didn't deserve basic recognition, why we were evolutionary accidents, why the galaxy would be better off if we simply stayed in our corner of space and eventually died out." Velrith's skin had gone completely white. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," Angela cut her off. "You meant every word. It's why you spent the next hour after your speech celebrating with your colleagues. It's why you gave interviews calling it your finest diplomatic achievement. You destroyed human hopes for galactic cooperation, and you were proud of it." She walked closer to Velrith's position, her footsteps echoing in the silence. "So I grew up in a humanity that knew the truth. We weren't welcome. We weren't wanted. We were vermin. And you know what vermin do? They survive. They adapt. They multiply. They find ways into places you never thought they could reach. Angela pulled out a data chip and tossed it onto Velrith's podium. It clattered across the surface and stopped directly in front of the alien ambassador that contains every communication you've had in the last 28 years. Every bribe you've taken, every vote you've sold, every species you've betrayed for personal gain. Turns out you're not just cruel, you're also corrupt. Velrith stared at the chip like it was a live grenade. "Release that data, and I'm finished," she whispered. "Yes," Angela agreed. "You are." Ethan stepped forward again. "But here's the interesting part. We don't actually care about destroying you, Velrith. You're not important enough. You're just one corrupt official in a system full of them. What we care about is making sure humanity never has to beg for recognition again." The holographic display changed, showing human colonies spreading across previously uninhabited systems. Massive construction projects, ships being built by the thousands, research facilities that dwarfed anything the Council possessed. "While you've been playing politics," Ethan continued, "we've been building an empire. Not through conquest, through innovation. Every problem you couldn't solve, we did. Every disease you couldn't cure, we did. Every technology you said was impossible, we made real." High Chancellor Zorath's energy field pulsed with what might have been resignation. "What exactly do you want from this council?" "Recognition," Ethan said simply. "A seat at the table. The respect we should have been given 28 years ago. And in return, we'll share our advances freely with every species that wants them." "And those who refuse?" asked Ambassador Thax. Ethan's expression hardened. "Then they can solve their own problems. We'll trade with who we choose, ally with who we choose, and if anyone decides that humanity needs to be put back in its place, the fleet beyond the doorway powered up weapons systems, energy signatures that made every sensor in the chamber scream warnings, will remind them why predators fear cornered prey." The council chamber remained frozen in tense silence for nearly a full minute. Then Ambassador Krell of the Saurian Dominion did something unexpected. He started laughing, deep rasping sounds that echoed off the crystalline walls. "Brilliant," he said, his scaled face splitting into what his species considered a smile. "Absolutely brilliant. You manipulative primates actually did it. You turned isolation into advantage." Ethan regarded him carefully. "You seem pleased about being outmaneuvered." "I'm impressed." Krell gestured at the display of human achievements. "My species built our empire through conquest. It took us 4,000 years and cost billions of lives. You did it in less than 3 decades without firing a single shot. That's not just intelligence. That's ruthless efficiency." Velrith turned on him furiously. "You can't possibly be considering legitimizing this extortion." "Why not?" Krell replied. "They have us beaten, completely. Fighting would be stupid, and whatever else we are, Saurians aren't stupid. We recognize superior force when we see it." "This isn't about force," Ethan corrected. "It's about value. We're offering solutions to problems that have plagued galactic civilization for centuries. Medical breakthroughs, energy solutions, agricultural techniques that could feed trillions. All we're asking is to be treated as equals." After threatening us with weapons, Velrith spat. After being insulted and dismissed, Ethan countered, "Tell me, Ambassador, if we'd returned with open hands and polite requests, would you have voted any differently than you did 28 years ago?" The silence that followed was answer enough. A new voice spoke up. "Ambassador Lissa of the Meditation Collective, a species known for their philosophical approach to galactic politics." Her translucent form shimmered as she addressed the chamber. "I must confess something," she said softly. The collective has been monitoring human space for the last decade, not through espionage, but through simple observation of their public communications. What we've seen is remarkable. What did you see? Asked Zorath. Transformation, Lissa replied. After the vote 28 years ago, humanity experienced what they call the Great Unification. Every nation on their homeworld set aside territorial disputes. Every corporation redirected resources toward collective advancement. Every scientist, engineer, and thinker focused on a single goal. She gestured toward Ethan, proving they were worthy, not to us, but to themselves. Ambassador Velrith didn't just insult humanity that day, she gave them purpose. Ethan nodded slowly. She's not wrong. The vote was humiliating, but it also clarified things. We realized we'd been approaching galactic politics like we approached each other, with compromise, negotiation, the assumption of good faith. You taught us that the galaxy doesn't work that way. So you became monsters, Velrith said bitterly. No, Angela interjected. We became focused. There's a difference. We didn't build weapons of genocide. We didn't engineer plagues. We didn't plot the destruction of other species. We simply decided that if the galaxy wouldn't make room for us, we'd make ourselves impossible to ignore. Another representative spoke up. Ambassador Dren of the Hive Mind Consensus, a collective intelligence inhabiting thousands of small insectoid bodies. Query, Dren's bodies said in perfect unison. What prevents humanity from dominating the galaxy once given council authority? Your technological advantage is overwhelming. Your species' historical tendencies toward aggression are well documented. Ethan had clearly been waiting for this question. Because domination isn't our goal. Never was. Humans don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to explore it, learn from it, contribute to it. But we'll only do that if we're respected. He pulled up another display. This one showed human colony worlds, cities built in harmony with alien ecosystems, research stations where human scientists worked alongside automated systems to study phenomena without disturbing them, trade outposts designed to benefit local populations. Every colony we've established in the last 28 years has been on uninhabited worlds. Ethan continued. We haven't displaced a single native species. We haven't claimed territory that belonged to others. We've been careful, deliberate, because we learned from watching you. The display shifted to show various galactic species' colonial histories. Conquered worlds, displaced populations, environmental destruction. The contrast was stark and deliberate. We saw what empire building cost the rest of you, Ethan said quietly. We decided to try something different, building up instead of taking over. It's slower, harder, but it works. And it doesn't require us to become what we despise. High Chancellor Zorath's energy field pulsed thoughtfully. You've made your point effectively, perhaps too effectively. But I must ask what others are surely thinking. What happens when humanity's technological advantage inevitably spreads, when other species acquire your innovations and the balance shifts again? Ethan smiled. Then we innovate faster. That's the real secret, Chancellor. You all stopped pushing boundaries centuries ago. You reached a comfortable level of development and plateaued. Humanity doesn't know how to plateau. We get bored, restless. We need challenges or we create them. That sounds dangerous, Velrith muttered. It is, Angela agreed cheerfully, for our competitors, but incredibly valuable for our allies. Imagine having a species in the Council that actively seeks problems to solve, that treats impossible challenges as entertainment, that never stops asking what if and why not. Ambassador Krell's laughter rumbled through the chamber again. I'm voting yes. Anyone who can't see the advantage of having these insane primates on our side instead of outside our walls is too stupid to hold a council seat.
Second,
Said Lissa immediately. Dran's 1,000 bodies chittered in discussion with themselves for a moment, then spoke in unison. The consensus agrees. Humanity's inclusion benefits galactic civilization more than their exclusion. We vote yes. One by one, representatives began voicing their support. Not all of them. Some remained silent, clearly conflicted, but the momentum had shifted. Velrith watched her carefully constructed opposition crumble. Her skin cycled through colors, expressing emotions humans couldn't begin to interpret. Finally, she spoke. You win, Commander Cross. Humanity gets its council seat. I hope you're satisfied. Ethan met her gaze without flinching. No, Ambassador, I'm not satisfied. I'm vindicated. There's a difference. Satisfaction would have been if you'd made the right choice 28 years ago. This is just correction of a mistake. The vote was called within the hour. The holographic tally board lit up with representations from 417 species across the galaxy. Green for approval, red for rejection, yellow for abstention. Ethan watched the numbers climb with the same expression he'd worn throughout the entire confrontation. Calm, unreadable. But Angela noticed his hands were clenched behind his back, knuckles white. The final count appeared. 312 green, 68 red, 37 yellow. Humanity had won. No celebration erupted from the human delegation. No cheers or congratulations. They simply stood there witnessing the moment that should have happened nearly 3 decades earlier. High Chancellor Zorath's energy field brightened to signal official recognition. By majority vote of the Galactic Council, humanity is hereby granted full membership status with complete voting rights and diplomatic privileges. This session will reconvene in one standard cycle to formalize procedures and— No, Ethan said. The chamber went quiet again. Zorath's field flickered with confusion. Excuse me? We're not waiting a cycle, Ethan stated. The council reconvenes in 6 hours. We have our first proposal ready for immediate consideration. Velrith's skin flushed dark purple with rage. You can't simply dictate the council's schedule. There are protocols, preparation requirements, which we've already completed, Angela interrupted, stepping forward with a data tablet. Our proposal has been translated into every council language. Supporting documentation is ready for distribution. We've even prepared the traditional feast that accompanies major policy initiatives, following customs from each of your cultures. She smiled pleasantly. We've had 28 years to prepare for this moment. Did you think we'd waste time once we got here? Ambassador Krell's laughter boomed again. I'm starting to really like these humans. What's the proposal? Ethan activated a new holographic display. It showed a region of space far beyond current galactic borders, a massive nebula that had been marked as impassable for thousands of years. The Void Nebula, he said. Every species in this council has tried to penetrate it at some point. The radiation levels are lethal to all known forms of life. The gravitational anomalies shred conventional ships. It's been written off as permanently inaccessible. Because it is, stated Ambassador Thex. The Antarian cluster lost 3 entire fleets trying to map it. We gave up 2,000 years ago. We mapped it in 11 months, Ethan replied. The display zoomed into the nebula's center, revealing something that made every representative lean forward simultaneously. A solar system. Not just any system. One with 7 habitable worlds orbiting a stable star. Impossible, breathed Lissa. The radiation would sterilize any planet. Life couldn't exist there. It doesn't, Angela confirmed. yet, but with proper terraforming, those worlds could support trillions of beings. The nebula itself acts as a natural barrier against invasion. It's the most defensible location in known space. Drain's bodies vibrated with excitement. You're proposing a joint colonization effort? No, Ethan corrected. We're proposing something better, a neutral zone. 7 worlds, each administered by a different coalition of species. No single empire in control, no territorial disputes. A place where galactic cooperation isn't just philosophy, but necessity. The implications rippled through the chamber. Species that had been enemies for millennia would have to work together. Resources would need to be shared, technology exchanged, trust built. This is madness, Velrith protested. The logistical challenges alone would take centuries to overcome. The cost would bankrupt half the council members, which is why humanity is providing the initial infrastructure, Ethan said. We've already built 3 gateway stations capable of safely navigating the nebula. Our ships can ferry personnel and supplies until other species develop equivalent technology. We'll share the shielding and navigation protocols freely. He paused, letting that sink in. But here's the condition. Every species that participates must contribute something unique. Technology, resources, cultural knowledge. This isn't charity. It's collaboration. Real collaboration where everyone brings their strengths to the table. Ambassador Krell studied the display intently. The Saurian Dominion has bioforming expertise that could accelerate terraforming by decades. We've never shared it before. The Meditation Collective has atmospheric processors that work on quantum principles, Lissa added slowly. They're far more efficient than conventional methods. One by one, representatives began volunteering resources and knowledge that had been hoarded for generations. The humans had done something remarkable. They'd created a scenario where cooperation wasn't just beneficial but irresistible. Velrith stood abruptly. I see what you're doing. This entire proposal is designed to make us dependent on each other. To force integration. Yes, Ethan agreed without hesitation. Because divided, you've spent millennia in petty conflicts and stagnant development. United, you could accomplish things that individual empires never could. We're not just offering you worlds. We're offering you a future that doesn't repeat the same cycles of competition and war. He walked to the center of the chamber, addressing everyone present. 28 years ago, this council decided humanity wasn't civilized enough for membership. You were probably right. We were still fighting among ourselves, still thinking in terms of nations instead of species. But your rejection gave us a common enemy. Not you, specifically, but mediocrity, limitations, the idea that we couldn't be better. His voice grew stronger. We went home and we changed everything. We rebuilt our civilization from the ground up with one goal, not just to join the galactic community, but to improve it, to bring something valuable that no one else could offer. And here it is, 7 virgin worlds in the most secure location in the galaxy. A chance to start fresh without the baggage of historical grievances. Angela stepped beside him. But only if you're brave enough to try. Only if you're willing to set aside old hatreds and older pride. Only if you're ready to prove that this council is more than just a bureaucratic exercise. The chamber fell silent as the weight of the proposal settled over everyone. This wasn't just about colonization. It was about fundamentally changing how galactic civilization operated. High Chancellor Zorath's energy field pulsed with what might have been amusement. You orchestrated this entire confrontation just to get us in a room where we couldn't refuse this proposal, didn't you? Ethan smiled. We learned negotiation tactics from watching council recordings. You're all very good teachers. Manipulative, Velrith hissed. Effective, Krell countered. There's a reason the Saurian Dominion built an empire. We recognize sound strategy when we see it. I'm voting yes on the proposal. The momentum built again. Species that had barely spoken to each other in centuries began discussing collaborative possibilities. Ancient enemies found common ground in the promise of new worlds. Velrith watched it all unfold, her expression unreadable. 6 hours later, the council reconvened. The Void Nebula proposal passed with an even larger majority than humanity's membership vote. 341 species committed resources to the project. Treaties were drafted. Committees formed. The galaxy's first true cooperative venture in recorded history had begun. But Ethan wasn't in the chamber to see it. He stood alone in an observation deck overlooking the council station, watching ships from 100 different worlds begin their preparations. Behind him, footsteps echoed on the metal floor. "You missed the celebration," Angela said, joining him at the viewport. "I've seen enough politics for one day." She nodded, understanding. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the galaxy turn. Velrith requested a private meeting. Angela said eventually, "Tomorrow morning, just you and her." Ethan's jaw tightened. Did she say why? No, but I don't think it's an ambush. She looked broken when I saw her last. Good. Angela glanced at him sharply. Still angry after all this time? Wouldn't you be? Ethan turned to face her. You grew up hearing her words, knowing that the galaxy saw us as mistakes. That anger fueled everything we accomplished. But it doesn't just disappear because we won. Then why accept the meeting? Ethan was quiet for a long moment, because holding grudges is what the old humanity would have done, the one she was right to reject. We're supposed to be better now. The next morning, Ethan entered a small diplomatic suite. Velrith waited inside, alone. Her skin was pale gray, drained of the vibrant colors her species normally displayed. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. Ethan sat across from her, saying nothing. "I've been reviewing records from 28 years ago," Velrith continued, "trying to understand why I was so cruel. I've found plenty of political justifications. Humanity was unknown, potentially dangerous. Your species' history of warfare was concerning." She met his eyes. "But the truth is simpler. I was afraid. Your people were so passionate, so driven, so hungry for connection. It reminded me of my own species in our early days, before we became comfortable and complacent. I saw in you what we'd lost, and instead of admiring it, I destroyed it." "You tried," Ethan corrected. "You failed." "Did I?" Velrith gestured vaguely toward the station beyond. "Look at what you've become. Calculating, strategic. You've learned to manipulate as well as any veteran diplomat. You've lost that passionate innocence I feared." Ethan considered this. Maybe we did lose something, but we gained perspective, purpose, the ability to actually make a difference instead of just hoping someone would let us at what cost. Everything that mattered. Ethan's voice was flat. Billions of humans spent their entire lives working toward this moment. Artists who never created for beauty, only propaganda. Engineers who never built for joy, only advantage. Children who grew up knowing the galaxy hated them. That was the price of your words, Ambassador. Velrith's skin paled further. "I cannot undo what I've done. No, you can't. But I can resign my position. Remove myself from council proceedings. It won't erase the damage, but perhaps it will demonstrate that I understand the magnitude of my mistake." Ethan stood, walking to the viewport. Outside, construction ships were already gathering supplies for the Void Nebula project. "Don't resign," he said finally. Velrith looked startled. "What? We need voices of caution in the council. People who ask hard questions and challenge easy assumptions." You were wrong about humanity, but you weren't wrong to demand proof of worth. Every species should have to demonstrate value before being granted power.
He turned back to face her.
Stay in your position. Vote against our proposals when you think we're wrong. Question our motives. Keep us honest. That's more valuable than your resignation. After everything I've done, you want me to remain? I want the council to function properly, Ethan corrected. That requires opposition and debate, not just agreement. You taught us that actions have consequences. Now live with yours by doing your job better. Velrith was silent for a long moment. You're either incredibly wise or incredibly vindictive. I cannot determine which. Both, Ethan admitted. That's what 28 years of focused evolution gets you. Humans who can hold contradictions without breaking. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Ambassador. That speech you gave 28 years ago, we've made it required study in every human school. Children learn it by heart. Not as an example of cruelty, but as a reminder of what happens when you let others define your worth. Velrith's skin rippled with emotion. That's horrifying. That's memory, Ethan replied. We won't forget what you said, but we won't let it destroy us either. We'll carry it forward as fuel, as motivation, as proof that the worst moments can forge the strongest resolve. He opened the door, then looked back one final time. Thank you, Ambassador Velrith, for giving humanity exactly what we needed, a reason to become extraordinary.
He left her sitting there, alone with the weight of her legacy.
Outside, Angela was waiting.
How did it go?
She apologized. And nothing. Apologies don't change the past, but they might shape the future. Ethan looked out at the gathered ships, at the species learning to work together, at the new era of galactic cooperation that humanity had forced into existence. We did it, Angela said softly. Everything we worked for, everything our parents and grandparents sacrificed for. We actually did it? No, Ethan corrected, a genuine smile finally crossing his face. We're just getting started. In the observation deck, Velrith watched the human commander walk away. Her skin slowly shifted colors, processing emotions her species had no words for. Shame, respect, fear, hope. She had insulted humanity 28 years ago. They had stayed silent and vanished, and they had returned as something the galaxy had never seen before. Not conquerors, not victims, but architects of a future that would